Hey, I did grow older and nothing much changed, so let's talk about nothing, shall we? Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the weekly navel-gazing, where I talk about all the things I didn't do, didn't read, and so forth last week, and make large promises for this week, which is exactly what I'm going to do. And yeah, let's just start that, shall we? And talk a bit about what I read last week. I did finish The Book of Night Women by Marlon James, and it's a brilliant book, but it's also extremely dark. That's sort of like my follow-up to reading The Salt Roads by Nalo Hopkinson, to have like another perspective on, well, Caribbean narratives about slavery and the likes. And it did very much deliver. In a lot of ways, it's very nuanced in when it comes to portraying the complex power structures at play in a colony between all kinds of factions there. It's a brilliant book. I'm just not sure if I'm qualified enough to actually make a full video discussion about it. Maybe comparing the two might be an option. Let me know if that's something you want me to do. I could probably do that. I might love to have someone with background knowledge of Caribbean slavery and stuff like that to talk to, but I don't know anyone who can do that. So who knows? We will see. It's something I read. I did read more books. I did actually read the Refrigerator Monologues by Catherine Valente, which has finally come out in audiobook on my birthday last week. And, well, it's great. It's brilliant. It's all the things I hoped for. And if you're into superheroes in any form, into comic books in any form, this is the one that you really want to go for. It does do so many things so well. It's brilliant. Go read it. It's also not very short, very long. So you might just want to go for it and have fun with it. That's something that I read last week. I did read more though. I did in fact reread A Hatful of Sky, because I was trying to make the video about A Hatful of Sky, and I didn't because yeah. But I did reread it again. Usually when we do the Discworld read-along stuff, I read it before we do the discussion, and then I reread it for the video, just to make sure that I have my thoughts sort of squared away. And I did try that, and then I just didn't actually get to doing the actual recording, because, yeah, well, there was that birthday thing and other stuff, and I didn't have enough time to actually record it when I wanted to. So this will happen this week. Did I read more? Well, I did start my reread of Consider Phlebas by Ian Banks, which is book 1 of the Culture series, because obviously I promised culture discussions, didn't I? So I'd better get through that. I'm already almost halfway through the book, maybe more. I might be able to finish it today, probably tomorrow. And then I'll have to think about how to actually approach culture discussions. Do I do one video per book? Do we do something else? Maybe have like a first introduction to it, and then we can maybe do some sort of like discussion or whatever. If you're interested in that, let me know what you would prefer when it comes to me talking about The Culture by Ian M. Banks, which is one of the most important science fiction series of the last probably 30 years, 30, 40 years. God, time does fly, doesn't it? So yeah, that's something I'll be thinking about this week. I'll definitely finish Consider Phlebas today or tomorrow, and then we'll see where this is going. So yeah, that's quite a bit of reading, isn't it? What are my plans for reading this week? Well, finishing Consider Phlebas, I will go and reread The Darkest Road by Guy Gavriel Kay, because I really want to get out that next Sunday school video on philosophy and psychology and stuff. We'll see how quickly that will work, but I'm sort of optimistic to actually manage to get that one out for Sunday next week. Wouldn't that be great? So yeah, that's reading plans that I have. Beyond that, I am confused or worried. We will see. What about videos? Well, I didn't actually produce one. I record one and upload it, and that was the one on Monstrous Regiment by Terry Pratchett, which is a fantastic book, and I liked it, and I'm glad some of you actually watched the video and did like this discussion, or at least like the book, so thanks for that. I do appreciate it a lot. And that's all the videos I managed to make, because then, yes, birthday and other stuff, and I just didn't actually get around to doing a lot of work last week, which is sad. But don't worry, I will be making more videos this week. As I already said, I'll definitely do the A Hat Full of Sky video. I have notes taken on how to structure it, so it's more me just having to, sit down and actually record it. Maybe I'll do that in a bit today. Who knows? There are chances for that. And I will definitely start work on the next large project, which is, as I said, the Sanderson video, which is not really about Sanderson's books, but more about how Sanderson approaches marketing and how I think that's a problem for the larger publication and publishing industry in general. So there will be something there, and I think I may have finally figured out how to actually break down, say, the idea of culture industry according to Adorno and Horkheimer. So I'll do that as well this week. I will not promise to have the full video done by the end of the week, because that one's going to be a bit more complicated in a lot of ways. But as I said, I'll also try to actually have a video out on, well, The Darkest Road, which is book 3 in the Fionnavar Tapestry by Guy Gavriel Kay, to have a look at what it does in that ongoing idea of Sunday school, of how to read fantasy the one and only true way, which is the way I tell you to do it, right? So that's ambitions for this week. Will it all work? Who knows? I'm not exactly an expert on on these kind of things. I make promises and break them all the time. It's part of who I am and what I do. So now what else? Yes, I think I'm trying to figure out how to do the Sanderson video, because there's a tendency in me to go overboard and explain more and do more things than I really need to. So I'm currently fighting the urge to actually go and reread or read more Sanderson books, because then I will probably start thinking about his content in, like the content of his novels, his stories, in a way that might just lead me astray from the actual video. We will see if I can if I can avoid that. I truly hope so, because otherwise, well, it'll take months and months to make the full video, and no one wants that. So I'm definitely thinking about how to do that. And as I said, with the books that I recently read, which were mostly, as I said, books on slavery in the Caribbean, stuff like that. I've come to realize that me talking about books about slavery does feel sometimes a bit weird, because I know very little about it, because obviously I'm in a country where slavery is not a top priority in school education, because we usually focus on the Holocaust when it comes to our own tragedies and our own atrocities. So yeah, reading books like the ones by Marlon James and Nalo Hopkinson does definitely broaden my education, and then I'm worried I might just get things wrong when I actually talk about them. So I'm still trying to figure out how to do this in a proper way, and by proper I mean like a respectful way, without assuming too much, because yeah, maybe I'll fuck up with those kind of things, and I'm certainly worrying more and more about those kind of things, which may or may not be a smart move, because it feels like I'm moving out of just talking about books as soon as I go into those directions, and yeah, I like to talk about books, is my point. I really do, but for me, reading and books have like all these additional dimensions that I need to take into account, and then suddenly we're in territory that is, well, no longer Kansas, to put it mildly. In addition to that, what else did happen? As I said, I had my birthday. We had the usual thing after the birthday, which is going up to the castle gardens with a bunch of friends and having a few beers and yelling Arkham Witch lyrics at the top of our lungs and stuff like that. Misbehaving in public is what I'm referring to, but it did definitely take a huge chunk out of my week last week because, friends arrived on Friday because they live in different towns. So, yeah, not that much time I could actually spend on reading and working and stuff like that. And in addition, I'm still, trying to figure out the whole money thing. Once again, thank you to those of you who have actually helped me out with the GoFundMe. Should you feel like you could do that, I'll put the link down in the description again. As I said, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of all my debt that I incurred over the last year when I was struggling with more burnout and depression than usual. And but I'm getting there, close. I mean, I'm slowly getting there. It's literally only a few €100 left before I can actually probably pay off all my debts, and that would be brilliant. So even, should you feel like you could help me, that would be sweet. Should you want to just share and share the link and ask other people for help, that would be also nice, because that's one of those things that I found fascinating. The more I think about it, is like asking for money is difficult for me, and the way you do this with crowdfunding, like something like a GoFundMe, it means you have to go and do the same thing over and over and over again because attention spans are so short. So there is a level of self-humiliation built into asking for money or asking for help on a GoFundMe for crowdfunding, like GoFundMe basically, that is built in. And that goes down to that idea that people don't want you to do that. There has to be some sort of moral, some sort of punishment for the crime of fucking up in a lot of ways. In society, that's something that I find interesting, because on the other hand, I already struggle with asking for my Patreon. There is a Patreon down there in case you want to help me. There's a lot of you here already doing that, and thank you to all my patrons. I do really appreciate it, and I really want to be better at providing some form of additional content or whatever to you to make it even more worth your while. But there's something weird happening there that means that you constantly have to advertise yourself, and I've been thinking about that. It's like I turn myself into a commodity, and that's dehumanizing in a lot of ways, isn't it? So I'm constantly struggling with how to make the one thing, how to make the Patreon more, feel less like begging for money, and how to, the GoFundMe is literally me asking for help. So it's slightly different, but still, it's why I promised to talk about the culture now, and not like in a year or whenever I would have gotten around to it, is because I wanted to give something back for people helping me, because just asking for something without providing anything in exchange feels weird. And the question is, why is that? And obviously the question is because that's how we are, how we grow up. It's how we get taught to think in our current system, that, asking for help is wrong. Being self-sufficient is how you should be. Being monetarily, financially successful is what you're supposed to be. And as soon as you don't match up in that specific game, you're already a failure. And everything that happens to you is justified in the larger scheme of things. And that's the insidious part of, living under capitalism, I guess, or at least neoliberal capitalism, that it is so deeply ingrained in everything, in all the media we see, in all the books we read, not in all of them, but in a lot of media we consume, and the way the world is presented to us, that it's very, very difficult to even go and question that, and go like, but hey, why is that? And that's something that, you see with, to bring this back to books before I stop my ramblings for today, that's something that we find with fantasy and science fiction a lot, where we basically a lot of authors have stopped to imagine futures that are not capitalist futures, that don't, just basically have the same economic system we have right now. And that's a shame, because literature should be there to imagine alternatives. They may be wrong, but at least we have thought about them. And not thinking about alternatives is, I think, the greatest danger that living in the world that we live in right now can offer to, well, art, is to actually shut off these alternative ideas, these possibilities that may be out there. That's the real danger, which, kind of ties back to the whole Adorno culture industry thing that I've been thinking about a lot, as you can probably tell. So, all things considered, not a very successful week, although I did read a bunch of good books. When it comes to productivity, I could have done worse. I could have done much better, though. But I'm beginning to be somewhat optimistic for this week and at least the next larger project. I've rediscovered my anger, and I think anger is very important for me making videos. It drives my productivity in a way that other aspects don't necessarily do. I have to be angry at the world so I can actually do stuff, which is probably sad, but then again, it's what drove Terry Pratchett to create Discworld, so who am I to complain? Not that I want to compare myself to Pratchett and Discworld. It's more that, like, anger at the world can be a good motivation to actually do stuff, and if that leads to a better world in the future, then maybe that's the price we'll have to pay. I certainly am willing to do that. Anyway, as I said, thanks to all of you who have supported me in any way over the last year. Thanks to those of you who have helped me with the GoFundMe. I do really, really, really appreciate it. Thanks to those of you who are patrons. I'm aware of that. I promise I'll do better with the Patreon stuff. I've been really, really bad at it recently. But thank you very much for that as well. It's more than just appreciated. It really means a lot to me. And, well, thanks to all of you actually watching my videos. And do comment and do all those fun things. I really hope all of you have had a great week, did some cool things, read some cool books, maybe did your mid-year freak-out tags or whatever. I hope you had a good time, and I hope you continue to have a good time and maybe read some good books this week. Who knows? Maybe you'll discover a new favorite, and wouldn't that be great? And with that, well, I'll see you in the next one, and until then, thanks and cheers.